could be larger than life, bigger than the world, living out the hopes and dreams of every boy and every girl. You could fly higher than the sky, shine brighter than the stars. You can live all you ever wanted. You could.
Welcome back to the channel, Grand Colombia, and welcome to another Coffee Time Live. And for the first time ever, or at least 3 or 4 years, I'm having a coffee during the show. It's not juice or water. Okay. Feel a little rusty. My brain is back. Struggled with that, but the brain cloud is lifted. And hope you all having a good New Year's. Thank you for showing up today. Today is going to be about coffee. It's going to be, well, let's move that brain cloud into the weather. So we're going to have a high of 78. No, today is 78 right now. We're going to have a high of 84 and a low of 62 about 5 o'clock in the morning. And it's going to be extreme UV from about 11 until 2 in the afternoon. It's going to be a wicked day. You know, use your sunscreen. Do your stuff this morning. Well, this morning's pretty much over. You know, have lunch, kick back. Maybe don't go out until after 3. So, good news, I guess. I happen to like rain, but there's probably not going to be any rain until at least 6 o'clock, and even then there's a pretty low chance. So we'll see how that goes. I'm trying to prognosticate weather, and we all know that's a fool's game, but what the hell, let's give it a shot. And the Colombian peso, it was up this week until today. Then it went to 38.87. It was over 39 all this week. But the dollar's in the tank. That's really what it boils down to. And then you add to that Colombia's paying off debt, taking advantage of that situation, and it leads to this situation. Okay, so no health talk. I'm feeling good. Got a plan. Gonna move forward with it. Did a whole separate video about it. You can go check that out. Sick of it. Sick of all of that topic and living it and all of that. So today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the channel, what to expect this coming year, because if all goes well, it'll be some pretty big changes. Some things I won't be able to share with you, but I'm going to give you a pretty good idea of what's up. And before I get into that, and after that, I'm going to talk about coffee specifically, just to give you an idea of some of the things that are going to be occurring on the channel. So I'll give you some samples. What I would like to do is take the week and turn this into a channel like Telemundo. So on Sundays, we have program Coffee Time Live. And that's going to stay, and it's going to be for people living here, interested in moving here, wanting to visit here, particularly the coffee region. That's not going to change as far as the purpose of it. But there's things I'd like to do on some other days. And some things I held off until I got my resident visa for legal purposes. So one thing I would like to do is maybe run a feature I don't know, say every Monday. It wouldn't occur on Monday, but I would upload it on Mondays. And that would be interviews with people willing to do an online interview. In other words, you could sit at your laptop or computer or even your phone if we discuss how to do it. And we would connect over the internet, and you would tell your story or whatever's appropriate. I might ask a few questions, but it'll be primarily about you. And it'll go up pretty much as it's recorded, with the exception of if there's some weird thing that is said and you don't want it in there or whatever, I can certainly, put a cut to it and then we can upload it. But I'd like it to be pretty much organic. And so that's something I would like to do. I'm not focused on it right now, but I will say this. If anybody's interested in doing that, shoot me off an email and I'll arrange something. Next thing. Let's see. I would like on Wednesdays to do something that I've been thinking about for a very long time. And somebody reached out to me, who's living in Ibagué, that adds significance to doing this. But what I want to do, I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I've been formulating it for quite a while. And I really enjoy coffee. I enjoy it once a day before 12 o'clock, about 5 days a week. And I enjoy it because it's awesome. I don't need the boost or the whatever people try to drink it for. And I don't need to drink it constantly because I probably wouldn't appreciate it so much then, but I really like coffee. Of course, when I was a kid, I hated it. But we all love the smell, and there's reasons why everybody loves the smell of coffee, whether you taste it, hate it, or not. There's a chemical reason for it, or a series of chemicals. But I want to give you a preview of a new show, I guess we could say. If you think of it in that terms, probably about 30 minutes long. Probably will be uploaded on Wednesdays. And some of you know, and I've hinted that I've said a few things about it, but I'm going to give you a kind of more of a specific outline. And it's going to be with a pretty girl as the presenter. In other words, the camera will be on her and not on me. And this show will have probably a format, not initially, but it's my goal, of 3 parts. The first part, and the lineup may change within that half hour, but the first one will be to visit a cafe and give it a review, essentially, and review the coffee. And let me show you a few things. Whoops. Let me, wrong button. Let me show you the names of this project that I've narrowed it down to. I've put a bunch of polls up in different locations, and some just kept falling to the forefront. And I'll tell you which one right now has the edge, but I haven't made my final decision yet. But here we go. We've got Explore or Exploring Colombia Coffee, Discover or Discovering Colombia Coffee, or Colombian Coffee Adventures. And I lean towards the last one, but I'm open to, they're all, I think, pretty good. The key thing is to, of course, have the word Colombia in it and have coffee in it so the name tells the story, and either Explore or Discover or Adventures really kind of tells the rest of the story. I lean towards Adventures because, one, I use it in the Facebook page. I use it in a number of things because it's been like my life has been an adventure, and these things go along with it. But this show won't be about my life. It will be about Colombian coffee. And I'm having a presenter do it because, one, Coffee is something popular worldwide. Now you have to understand, when I do coffee time and I upload these videos, I've known from the very beginning, this is a very narrow niche. How many people are considering retirement and considering retirement in Colombia and considering retirement in Colombia in the Coffee Triangle and maybe more specific Armenia? You know, you're taking this millions of people in an audience and you're narrowing it down to tens of thousands and to thousands and to even hundreds. And I've known that. And this would never be a big channel, and I didn't care. And I still don't. However, coffee is something appreciated worldwide. And it's a very important thing worldwide. And I know that there's going to be an international audience. So I want to at least make it presentable and entertaining. And after a month or two, it will probably even be professionally edited, because you know how much I love editing. I really want to put something into this and make it something decent. But above all, I wanted to showcase the coffee primarily around Quindío, because I find Quindío to be very unique. In the large world of Colombia, Quindío is a very special place, and it's a very special coffee. So I want my focus to be that, but I won't say it will exclusively be that. But that's the thinking. As a matter of fact, I probably should mention, the ideal growing of coffee anywhere in the world, the perfect environment to grow coffee is an altitude around 5,000 feet. Here we are. Frequent rain. Here we are. It's volcanic soil. It's exactly what we have. And a certain level of shade. And here in Quindío, many of the coffee farms incorporate shading coffee plants with banana trees, or even if they don't do that, they for periods of time, they roll the shading material out over the plants. So the perfect place to grow coffee in the entire world happens to be here in Quindío. And all those things come into play. They do certain things like affect the acidity. For example, the higher altitude, the less acidity there is. You don't want to have too much. You don't want to have not enough. One of the things that causes people to enjoy coffee is a certain level of acidity. Well, we're right in the Goldilocks zone for that, so it's a very important thing. So what I'm trying to say is the coffee is special here. The beans or seeds, they grow denser, unlike Brazil, where the fibers are very loose and woody. And so you're never really going to get the great coffee out of that environment, but it's perfect for commercial use. But if you want really special, unique coffees, this is the place. So hence the show. So those are the proposed names. You got to have a name. So we'll see what we're going to do with it. It'll probably be on YouTube just because this is here, but I am considering throwing it over to Rumble. It's always, everything I do here shows up on Rumble and Odyssey anyway. You could be watching this on Rumble, but I may generate it out of Rumble just because, YouTube won't add anything to it. Okay, so here's the idea. So I mentioned part one will be a cafe review. So we'll go to one of the cafes. Most of the cafes have their own specific coffee, or they represent a specific coffee. We'll take a look at that and review that. Some cafes are more independent, and they may have 5 or 6 farms represented to serve you. Like the one we have the Gringo meetings at on Wednesdays at 11. That's from a farm near Pareda. There's 3, I believe, 3 locations of the El Barista Cafe. So it's a mini chain, and they all represent a coffee near Pareda. It's good coffee. I've never had what I would classify as a bad coffee here in Condillo, but I'm not a real fan of that coffee. But it's okay. It's good coffee. But that is their coffee. So if you go there, that's the coffee you're going to get. If you go to Cafe Condillo, for example, well, they're a larger company, and so they have blends and they have coffees unique to each location. They've got a coffee for Pijao. They got a coffee for Enova. They've got for all the little townships. There's 12 townships. They have a coffee that is single sourced out of those townships. And so it's pretty interesting. You can go there and you could probably do 2 or 3 video segments there. If you look about 4 years ago, I did an interview with the vice president and the head roaster of Cafe Condillo. I did a video on it. It's quite interesting. I'm not crazy about their blend, although, like I said, this is a scale. Say on a scale of coffee is crap and 10 is knocks you out of the park. I don't know if I've ever had a coffee in Condillo below a 7. So when I say I'm not crazy about it, I mean it's probably a 7. I don't care for blends that much. I really do appreciate single source coffees. Now, I didn't used to know anything about that, but the more I've learned and tasted, the more I find the things that I like. And there's no right or wrong. I mean, you might happen to be a coffee expert and love blends, you know. I'm certainly not an expert, but that's my liking. So anyway, so that will be one part of it. And we may, maybe even we'll have a lunch and mention the food and stuff, but it'll be basically a review of the cafe and tasting that coffee. And so another segment will be a visit to a coffee farm. So during the week, I go to a coffee farm, we walk around, we meet the owner of the farm, we see what he's doing, maybe ask him a few questions or whatever. And my coffee girl will come with me. She's bilingual. I'm pretty sure I've chosen one. And so that'll be a segment, maybe a 10-minute segment. And next week, we'll go to a different cafe and we'll go to a different coffee farm. And then the third segment, again, I'm not sure of the order. It'll be whatever makes sense. The third segment, sorry for you, but it'll be me probably sitting here in the studio talking about some specific topic about coffee. And that could go on endlessly, but the general categories I've got up on the screen here, it'll be specific things about growing or specific things about drying, whether you leave the pulp on it or not. What's honey coffee? If it's sun-dried, is it important to raise it up off the ground? Things like that. Roasting. Oh my God, you could go on forever for roasting. If it wasn't for the type of roast, you wouldn't be able to appreciate the coffee. Roasting is unbelievably important. And then making coffee, it's like mocha pots and French presses and coffee ratios and what should the grind look like for a mocha pot versus an espresso, things like that. And those I'll probably video doing them, cut them up so there's not a lot of wasted space in there, and then insert that as a segment. So that's the idea of the coffee show once a week. Hopefully not too dragged out. Hopefully it'll be kind of compressed. I think it'll be interesting. Personality that'll be interesting. And then something that occurred to me just recently, and partly was developed during a conversation. Damn, it's good. Sometimes it makes you want to have a second one. But I love a cold beer on a hot day, but I never really care for the second one. So kind of like that here. All right. So this idea was, all right, we went to this cafe and we tasted this farm's coffee. And we went to this farm and we tasted their coffee. And we went to that cafe and we tried that one and this one, that. So by the end of what we'll call a season, whether it's 12 or 20 episodes, I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But we'll call it a season. So at the end of it, we'll have a finale. And at the finale, we'll choose one of the cafes that's good size, pay them to do pour overs, have all of those coffees, and we'll have a panel probably of you guys that will come, maybe 4 or 5 of you, and you'll sit there and you'll taste those coffees, and there'll be a blind taste test. You won't know, and we'll see which one the majority of you thinks is the best coffee. And we'll probably invite local people to come and laugh and make fun of us and like that. I don't know. It could be a lot of fun. It's possible to do it live, but I'm not sure I would be able to. But at the very least, you know, it will be live. And that would be the finale to crown the king of coffee for that season. And then keep doing that. Do it again and again, because there's so much to show. There's so much to understand. I'm a bit passionate about it, so I think for me it'll be a lot of fun, and I think you guys will like it too. It comes up once in a while. Why don't you do more about coffee? You call it coffee time. Well, I call it coffee time because we're sitting and having a coffee, except I'm usually having a juice, and talking about my life in Colombia. But that'll be for Sundays. So that's kind of the gist of it. Any questions or comment on that? And while you're questioning or commenting, I'll go back over the chat because I got right into this and wasn't paying attention. Juka, greetings from Finland. Thank you very much, and thank you for earlier this week. Mr. Sawicki, good morning, everyone from Seattle. How you doing? Juka dropped a money bomb. Thank you. Rob, good morning from Fort Lauderdale. Yeah, you'll be saying that for another year? Sorry, dude. Ben, buen dia. How you doing? Mike Jarvis. I see a couple of guys here that would make great coffee reviewers. Chad, coffee is life. Sebastian, morning from Fargo. How you doing? Let's see here. Yep, here's more. Michael, good morning from Los Angeles. Man, I'll tell you, when I hear things like that, or good morning from San Francisco or Portland, or I sitting here, I almost feel guilty because of where I'm living and where you have to live. I mean, oh, and Colombian coffee adventures. Yeah, we're certainly leaning that way. Coffee adventures in Colombia. Now, leave it to you to want to drag this out longer. If anything, I'd like it to be shorter, but I don't know how to get below the 3-word thing. Robert, Colombian coffee adventures. Chad, literally the best coffee in my life was at Cafe Candio. Runner up at Cafe Famosa in Pereira. Brian, let's see. Good morning. I hope the Dolphins can handle the Buffalo Bills today. I certainly hope they can't. They make their coffee around Colombia in different ways out of the ordinary we're used to in the United States. The preparation of coffee, the growing of coffee, tends to be a little unique. Most of the world, with some exceptions out of Africa, I mean, there's always exceptions, but most of the world came to the coffee game kind of late, and their commercial operations primarily. And we say exceptions in Africa. The original coffee, as far as anybody knows, at least the Arabica, came out of Africa, and they've been doing coffee there forever. So having little farms and boutiques doing it for themselves or a village is not unusual. But coffee was in Colombia early on. It goes back hundreds of years, and they developed, because Colombia was somewhat isolated, they developed their own ways of doing things. And except for the commercial operations I've talked about, like over near Manizales and much of Colombia, places like Quindío are still the kind of original traditional ways that Colombians do it. And some of that is unique, but there's also experimentation going on about fermenting for 2-3 days, leaving the cherry on the seed or on the bean and letting it ferment like that, or taking the skin off but leaving that pulpous, that mucus kind of stuff, letting the bean dry with that instead of washing it off. You know, there's a lot of things being experimented with, and everything that they do like that alters the flavor in one way or another. So some people may love it, some people may hate it, but there's a lot of that going on. Excellent idea for a new show to complement your coffee time. If I lived in Fort Lauderdale, I'll fly out every month with Sprint direct flights. He almost does. Regarding the new channel, do you think you'll provide bad reviews for the places or coffee you truly don't like? If so, does that worry you at all? How sensitive might the owners become? Doesn't worry me at all. I don't think I'll find that, because living here as long as I have, I've never found that. So I don't think that's going to be the case. I wouldn't be rude and crass about it, because I'm not going to screw with somebody's business. But if I'm not thrilled with it, you'll know. You'll certainly know. Also, you have to take into account, having been in business myself for 40 some years, every place could have a bad day. And so you walk in there and whatever goes on, maybe it's a line of dominoes, and one bad domino falls over, but every day of the year prior to that, everything was awesome. So you have to take that into consideration. If I found anything that was really weird, I'd probably go visit another cafe and hold that video, and then on another time go back and check that cafe out again before I would upload. Okay, we went here and we found such and such, and I didn't know if that was real, and I wanted to be fair, so we've held this for the last couple of weeks, and we've revisited, and here's what we found. We either confirmed it or we found they were just having a bad day. I would probably take that into account, because I am sensitive about people misunderstanding businesses. And when you screw with a business, you're not only screwing with one you might be mad at, but everybody else who makes their living. I just don't think it's something you should do lightly. But like I said, I've yet to go to a bad one, so I don't know. Ethiopian coffee is quite amazing. Yeah, people think That's actually the ground zero for coffee. Colombian Coffee Adventures in Africa. Owen, shortened it from 3 words to 1. Colombian Coffee Adventures. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful. Okay. Talk amongst yourselves. Getting down there. Any of you recognize this cup? See how many old timers are here. If you recognize this cup, tell me what it's missing. Okay. Wish we had prizes. That would be awesome. Trivia question to give out some prize. Okay. I mentioned coffee flavors. There's so many things that come into play that affects your enjoyment of coffee. I'm not even going to try to pronounce these, but a coffee bean, which is a seed out of a cherry, okay, I'm going to try. Acetaldehyde, trigonelline, malic acid, I got that one. Potassium K, I got that one. Every one of these things have a serious effect. For example, potassium. It's an essential mineral that regulates everything from your heartbeat to stable blood pressure. That's in coffee. Malic acid, that's, the acidic part, that has a lot to do with the flavoring, and they use malic acid when they're creating a flavor like green apple. And you'll hear experts about coffee who have refined their taste often talk about apple flavor in coffee because there's similarities to it. The trigonelline, it's an alkaloid, and it's where your bitterness comes from. And then you got the oh my God, the acetaldehyde. That's a chemical that's actually used when they produce perfumes, but ironically, they also use it in explosives and varnishes. But it's a flavoring additive that is used to give kind of an apple or buttery flavor to foods. Boy, those two of those names just kind of throw me off. But I mean, we may talk about that in some detail, but I'm thinking probably not, because I don't want it to get too boring, and that's not very exciting. But I think it's something worth mentioning. Also, I'm going to talk a little bit about roasting. And let me see here. I've got something. Little background. Well, wait a minute. We have way too many Bills fans in this town right now. Yeah. Thousands and thousands flew down there. Your coffee components pronunciation is almost as good as your Spanish. Hey, I resemble that remark. Okay, where was I? Oh yeah, I'm calling it on my button the B-roll. So I just kind of run little pictures here. But the key to flavor, primarily, if you've grown coffee right and you've prepped it right, and dried it, and you've got the right humidity, moisture in it. It's all important. You really need to have a certain percentage, and you've done all of those things. That's your grounds, your basis for the flavor.
12.
But the roasting
12,
is what brings
no,
those flavors
I think
out.
next on July,
Obviously, very
maybe
important.
14 years
Things that'll
ago.
affect it.
I started when I was
Oh, and
19
this is a guy
years
that
old.
I interviewed
started
at Cafe
my
Candio,
career is
and he roasted up a batch of coffee
food
so I could
technician
understand
and
the first crack and the
international
second
business
crack
manager.
and all
I
the
studied
things.
and I used to work coffee in
because
Saudi Arabia
Crack
last
is
year.
critical when you're roasting.
I was in Saudi Arabia
coffee.
in Riyadh and
So
Jeddah
how long does it
working
take you to
specialty
roast? I mean, it could be a couple of minutes, it could be 10 or
around 2
15
years.
minutes, it can be
So here we have
for
the
some
real
dark roast, they'll roast them out
coffee tree.
at a lower heat
Yes,
for as long
this
as
is
20
like
minutes.
Colombia
The moisture
variety.
content of the bean
Yes,
or the
so
seed
here we have
is
the red
really
cherry,
critical when you're
and
roasting.
it's the way how the coffee
because the
farmers,
first
how the
crack
coffee
comes
producers,
when
they
the seed
pick
heats up
the
to the
cherry.
point that the
So
moisture
in
in it
farm,
turns
they
into
used to
steam, and it bursts out of that seed or the coffee bean,
to separate
and it sounds like
this.
popcorn.
Here
And
we
I
have
noted that
2 coffee beans,
at the Cafe
and
Candio thing. That was
then
the first time I'd
they
ever actually
remove
heard it.
like the
And it sounds
mucilage,
like a bunch of
yes,
popcorn.
the mucilage, the
And
honey,
once you
and
hit
then
the first
they
crack,
process
you're
the coffee
in the light roast to
at
going into the
on
medium roast.
They dry the coffee.
The light roast is
Through
the
sun.
roast that will give you
Yes.
more
here
earthy,
this is like
natural
a-
flavors. You know, it hasn't been cooked
A
yet.
cherry,
Think of
yes,
a rare
this is like
steak.
a immature
you know.
or green
It hasn't
cherry.
been cooked yet.
Here
There
in
are
Colombia,
things there
we
that you
pick
can appreciate.
only the red cherries.
Maybe
That's
some
the reason that
herbal
our
tastes or things like
like
that.
potato,
You're drinking plant
Why?
juice,
when the coffee
and some people like that.
gets cracky,
You get into the
gets
medium
cracked,
roast, and
like
that's where
popcorn,
you think
is
of again
when
what's
he
the medium
starts
rare, and what
to
makes it
develop
stay good
all
is
the
that,
sugar.
that little crust on the outside, but
Okay,
the
yellow
inside.
color,
And that crust is that Maillard reaction. When you do a medium roast, that's when the Maillard
it's like
reaction kicks in.
peanuts. Peanuts,
You didn't go to the second crack yet.
It's more like
Explain that in a
like
minute.
dry fruits.
So when you have a medium roast, you're developing those flavors that existed
We have
in the
6
bean.
minutes.
It
Gonna start to
accentuates those
first
flavors
crack,
like
or
Maillard
first
reaction
pop.
accentuates
Is
the
when
flavor of
when
whatever
the coffee
that's
starts
occurring on in food. And so you're getting all of those different flavors, almost like you put MSG in it. You know, they're there and they're more pronounced. Then you get to the second
smelling
crack.
starts like caramel, vanilla.
I didn't know there was
all the
audio on
sugars
that. Sorry, let me turn that off.
inside the coffee.
Whoop. Usually I have to manually turn that audio on. Okay. So when you get to the second crack, and it's where they call it full city, there's different names, different places. But now you're getting into the darker roasts. You go to the French roast, and then you got your Italian roast. And one of the that second crack where the noise is coming from second time around is actually not the steam anymore. That's already gone. It's the carbon monoxide gas that the heat has expanded and it's escaped out. So you kind of wring that bean dry. And that's when you start to see the oil on the beans. Through the medium roast, the beans appear dry. But when you get into the dark roast range, they become oily. Well, the downside is, first of all, they won't last long because that oil's on the outside and it's going to kind of degenerate. It just kind of falls apart. I'm not a fan of dark roasts. Also, you've lost all the characteristics and flavor of whatever that bean was, good or bad. And now what you're really tasting is the roast itself. So where we had medium rare, now think of a well done steak. You know, it's no longer juicy, it's crusty, but maybe you're getting the carbon taste more than you're actually getting the meat. And that's a dark roast. So you can, if you like the dark roast, kind of almost a one note flavor, then you're going to like that. I personally don't. I happen to like all the different nuances to coffee. And it's funny because if you took me back 10 years ago, all I knew was Maxwell House drip. Uh, yeah. And rarely, um, I hardly ever had coffee because I don't know, there wasn't anything for me to appreciate with it. But here, after a while, I start learning and appreciating and wanting certain things. So the thing about dark roast, in my opinion, is you could take any coffee. It could be crappy coffee. It could be the best coffee. It kind of almost doesn't matter. Again, this is my opinion. It almost doesn't matter because you're only get the roast flavor for the most part anyway. It just seems like a shame. I know one of the reasons I never like Starbucks is they like to use a lot of darker roasts. And in my, again, solely my opinion, not based on any particular fact, I think it's a good way to take cheap coffees and market them as something really good and putting it out there. Who the hell can tell the difference when you get these dark roasts like that? Audio's, oh, Starbucks ruined coffee in America with their super dark roast, strong and bitter. Well, yeah, that's another thing about dark roast is it has that strong taste, but it actually has less caffeine. The darker the roast, the less caffeine it has. And there's few people that seem to know that. Darker the better, you know, I like that caffeine fix. Well, you just kind of cook the caffeine out of it. I mean, it's still caffeine. It's just that it kind of darker roast, caffeine. So anyway, these are the kinds of things that in the segment that I'll do, I'll focus on some particular aspect and I'll go into some detail about it, not for the sake of giving out some details, but the things that I found interesting and useful if you're interested in coffee. Again, I am not putting myself out as some expert because I absolutely am not. I can't imagine I will ever become an expert, but I have learned a lot of things for myself, and I'm going to share those. I'm going to share the things that I have learned about it because I've come a long way. But I think I mentioned before, again, let's go to the scale of 1 to 10, where somebody, he drinks coffee and doesn't know or care anything about except how to throw it in the filter and put water in it. That's a 1. And then you got 10 who's like, we have the apple and vanilla with a hint of chocolate and cinnamon, and I can tell that it comes from the region at the south of France, you know, that kind of thing. Okay, so that's this guy up here. I'm probably a 4 or 5, but I'm going to share my 4 or 5 with you in that segment. And so that's it. That's my plan of what's upcoming. So again, if you're interested in doing an interview, we can do that online. So you can do it from the comfort of whatever jail cell you're sitting in, or you know, wherever. Sorry, bad humor. I got this Epstein document release stuff on my brain. Okay, so that's it. That's what's going on. As always, I would like your feedback and comment. It is useful. I don't ask you for any other reason than I really want to know what you're thinking and what your comments are. I do read them all. Doesn't always go in that direction, but it very often helps center me with where I'm trying to go. Perfect analogy, coffee levels, Colombian residential stratuses. I don't know about that. You get the hell out of here. Um, you mean for the taste test? All right. So that done. This is our comment period. And if you have questions or comments or anything you want to discuss about, we can do that for the next 15 minutes. And if not, we'll wrap up early. Again, I'm not trying to escape to watch a football game, although you might be. My game's tonight. I will be watching it live on Kodi, whatever channel it's on. I'll be camped out there in that chair. I'm pain-free, and I will be sitting there watching the Bills game and hoping I don't have yet another disappointment and have to say, well, there's always next year. The end. Getting a little cold. How do you rate cowboy coffee? I don't know anything about cowboy coffee. Like I say, I'm no expert, and anything that I know about coffee is what I've learned here. And I don't know that I've ever seen cowboy coffee here. So you tell me. Maybe I know it. I just don't know what you're saying. Oh, I got this thing. This was kind of cute. You can roast at home. And there's a whole part of YouTube that some of them are pretty funny, where people get raw beans and they decide to try to roast them at home. Let me show you a few of the things that these are thumbnails off of YouTube. Here's one: roasting coffee at home with a popcorn popper. That's one of those air roasting in an air fryer. That's a convection toaster oven. How to pan roast coffee. And stovetop popcorn popper. So that's a different kind. That's the kind where you put the oil in and the popcorn, like movie popcorn. I did learn that coffee experts generally have these little experimental drums or test drums that they'll count out like 90 coffee beans, and they'll put them in, and they'll try that, and then they'll try another one, or do small batches. But there are some that will actually take a cast iron pan and they will toast them or roast them in a cast iron pan. You have to be really good at it. You have to be quick. You have to be constantly stirring and shaking. But I saw some examples. This one guy, he was like 60 years old, been doing coffee since he was a kid. And it was pretty interesting. When he was done, he had some great looking coffee, but some of the other ones that I looked at, it looks like it's very difficult to get it to roast evenly. But I don't know. I've been saying next year from 72, my Dolphins let me down every year. Yeah, well, they're going to let you down again this year. You have too many injuries, and Buffalo's too good. So, I hope. Yeah, I hope. But hey, if Buffalo can't win, I hope you do. How's that? All right. Any questions? Any comments? Are we done? Mike, what is cowboy coffee? Is that you cook it you just throw the coffee in the water and you throw it on the campfire? Is this last call? Are we done? Should I make it official? Time. It's time to start asking your questions. Remember, 4 question marks first, then ask the question. That's the recipe. Oh, well, they're most of them are kind of like that. Mocha pots like that. And when they test coffees, they do those tastings. What they do is they measure out, they'll grind the coffee to a specific grind. they will measure it out by grams. They'll put it in a little test beaker, and then they'll pour in hot water of a specific temperature and of a certain milliliters. So it's all measured out, and the grinds are right there. And then they just kind of stir that up. And after a couple minutes of it, soaking up, they'll just take a spoon and scoop off most of those grounds. And then they'll just start slurping out of there, grounds and all. They'll just start like wine testers, and so they're not cooking it up in machines or mocha pots or French presses or any of that kind of stuff. They're just doing it that way. I prefer medium roast and French press. French press does a really good job. The key with a French press is getting the grind right. The grind has a big swing on the effect of French press. You don't want to use an espresso grind in a French press. I learned that the hard way. I couldn't figure out why my coffee, it just wasn't hitting it. I'd gone from a mocha pot to a French press for some particular reason, and I just wasn't hitting it. And then I don't know, I just decided to grind it a little bit light, a little bit coarser, and nailed it. When you toss the quarter in the bottom of the pot, you can no longer see it. It's ready. Oh, yum. Yeah, I think you kind of know when it's ready anyway, but okay. I suppose that makes sense. But what do you do if it's a light roast? I mean, that stuff looks almost like tea. Okay. Oh, I didn't see that. Mr. Anonymous, probably Jerry, thank you very much. See that notification sound? I don't hear anything. That's why I didn't know that there was sound on that little video clip. What is the approximate total cost from the time an expat applies for residency to citizenship for the various visas? Well, from residency to citizenship, there are no more visas. So I've got my residency. In 5 years, I can apply for citizenship. I don't have to apply for another visa. Do you mean from the time you get here? I think that's what you're asking. And like when I got here, well, before you can apply for the permanent residency, if you're retired, you would get the pensionado, they call it migrante visa. You have to have 5 years of that, whether it's 1, 2, or 3 years per visa. I had 3 years on the first one, 3 years on the second one. So technically, I still have a year left on my other one. But I wanted to get in on this. If there were any problems or whatever, it gave me a whole year to sort it out. Fortunately, it just went flying through. The cost, I hate to say, because if you're talking about the costs for permanent residency to Colombian citizenship, that's 5 and 10 years down the road. I have no idea what it's going to be then. I know it's considerably more now than it was 5 years ago. So it would be pointless for me to speculate what that's going to be. You can look on the Colombian immigrant website, or migrante, what is it? Migración. Immigration only without the M, migración. And not Tion, it's C instead of a T. So if you look on that website, you can find that current information. But then you're going to have other costs. What documents are they going to require at the time? Where are you located? What's the cost of getting those documents and apostilling those documents? And what's the cost of shipping? And all of those things in 5 years, God knows, nobody knows. I mean, it could be double, it could be triple. But then again, the value of the money could be double and triple by then. There's just too much to know. Now, if I were to go back and look, the 2 pension visas cost me about $1,000 for both. This permanent resident visa, I think, I actually haven't added it up, and it was bits and I think it was about $800 or $900. Turtle, if you're on there, could you might remember what I think it was maybe $800 or $900. So let's say it was $1,000. So for the first 10 years, it was about $2,000 in total cost, and then comes the citizenship, which I wasn't going to before, because with the permanent residence, I was just going to ride on that. But now the permanent residence, you have to refile basic information. You don't have to go through all the same stuff. So if you're going to have to go do that, you might as well just do the citizenship and be done forever. And then you don't have to worry about, whatever the time is for leaving the country or any of that. Owen, French press grind should be coarse. Had to get a virtuoso and burr grinder to get the right consistent grind. Yeah, all grinders are not alike, and sometimes those blade, well, they call them coffee grinders, but they're really for cooking herbs and things, but they have a blade. Sometimes some of those actually work pretty decent for an espresso grind, but they're crap for anything else. So if you got an espresso machine, one of those will work. But if you try to use that with a French press or a mocha pot, you're gonna butcher the coffee. You can get cheap burr grinders, which is really what you want to have. I can't afford good stuff, so I've got a cheap Chinese burr grinder that I bought like 3-4 years ago, and it's pretty good, except with the espresso, and it just doesn't quite go enough. So I have to do something else. Another thing when you're grinding is you want to take a little spritz of water. I've got a little bottle. I'd run out and show you, but it would take a minute. I've got this little clear spray bottle with water, and you put in the beans that you want to grind up, and you just give it like a and you throw that in. And what it does is it eliminates the static electricity that puts coffee dust all over the place, coffee grinds. Yeah, so it eliminates the mess, but also it's better for the coffee itself. Now that's if you're grinding up like a whole bag and trying to put it in a vacuum can and keep it. I used to do that. I quit doing it because even though it's in a vacuum can, it still affects the flavor. And what's the point? So now I'll grind maybe for 2 or 3 days, and I'll keep that in the vacuum can. And that seems to work out good. Oh, something else. Somebody said to me recently, I like fresh roasted coffee right out of the roaster. And you don't. It sounds like a good thing to say, but after it's been roasted, it really needs to sit for 2 or 3 days to release whatever gases are there, or it's really going to throw the taste. It's not going to be good. So fresh roast, as in wait a couple days. Around Colombia, in some of the bakeries, I see them use espresso machines, then add water to make your cup of coffee. That disappoints me. My second cup is different from the first cup. I wouldn't be disappointed, because what's done here is that's an Americano. And so what they do is they make the espresso, and then to make an Americano, which is watered down espresso, is they take the hot water and they put it in, and very often at least at some of the nicer cafes, they'll bring you the little pot of hot water and you add however much you want to add to it. Typically, what will happen is if you take that espresso and you put it in a regular coffee cup, you just add water up to what it would be if you had poured the coffee out of a, your typical drip percolator type coffee. And that's what you're shooting for. Americano, if you get coffee in a truck stop, or you get coffee in a restaurant, it's got those big coffee machines, or you have the little filter drip coffee with the alarm clock and stuff at home, none of those things are precise. You're just throwing in a scoop here and there, and your scoop one day will be different than another day. None of that is very precise. And so when they make an Americano, what's the point of being precise? It wasn't precise on what it's based on. So that's what it's about. I wouldn't be disappointed if you wanted just the espresso. They won't add water to that. They're going to give you the espresso. But they're giving you what's called Americano. The Virtuoso Plus has a timer, so you get the perfect amount of grind every time. Yeah, see, now you're getting into the thing that when you get into spending money, I don't have a lot to go on with that kind of stuff, but I have found that you can get away with just spending a handful of dollars and making killer coffee if you understand the basics of it, the ratio of the coffee to water and the type of ground that it needs to be. I mean, you could take a hammer and put it in a cloth bag and beat on it until you get the approximate grind. So I would love to have a certain coffee machine that's about $1,200 because it makes life easy. But I can make coffee every bit as good as that machine. And I'm speaking of one in particular that I know of that I love that thing. And I look, hoping that I'll find a used one for like $100. It's never going to happen. And if it is, it'll be broken. All right. Is we done? All right. Please, 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 please. There's my email. Comments, suggestions. If you're interested in interviewing, people all the time say, why don't you do more interviews? Why don't you do interviews with people that are there? And I tell people all the time, it's because nobody wants to do it. And I don't want to chase people for it. I don't blame them, but that's why. But here's your chance. If you're interested, or if you think you have something to say, let me know and we'll set up a time. All right, there's my email. And having said that, we can end it for today. So thank you very much. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Juka. I appreciate that. Thanks for everybody else. I cannot wait to learn what you know. Well, I'm going to try to drag it out into a whole bunch of shows. Taco, I made it. Yeah, but we're leaving. So, that's the beauty. It'll be there. You can go back and play it from the beginning. I had fun today because I talked about something I really enjoy. I don't know if you can tell, but that's why I'm excited about what I talked about today. Hey, dude, I heard about your health. Yeah, we're not talking health. I'm good. And I expect to say that. As a matter of fact, all the things that were affecting me since last year, I think they are all based on one thing. And maybe we're finally going to get to the bottom of it. Listen, I had the same issue. Cut out sea oil, fried foods, and stop the... Yeah, I don't believe it's really food related at all. Everybody is saying that. I don't think that's it. The two things that they say it probably is really have nothing to do with food. But who knows? We'll see. That's what we're going to go through it. I eat fruit and red meat only. Well, you'd be surprised. That's pretty much what I eat. I don't eat just because I'm fat. I'm fat for a reason. The way I eat hasn't really changed much, and I don't really. It's extremely rare that I have anything processed. I almost never have anything like snacks or chips or snacky cakes, or I don't drink sodas, and it's like I grew up so poor we couldn't afford that. I never acquired a taste for it. Acid reflux and that pain, it's not a tumor. You're not understanding what I have. Phosphoric acid and Coca-Cola. Well, I don't really drink Coca-Cola except on a rare occasion. Got to stop chasing those chicas. See, now that's what they're telling me. They're saying the bottom line is you have to stop this way of life that you have. You cannot live in paradise the way you think. And so you're going to have to cut back on something. Anyway, Taco, I appreciate the comment, but you're not getting none of those things really apply to me. Anyway, that's it. We're done. I will see you next Sunday, and I look forward to at least a dozen emails from you guys. Please, please, please. Ciao. Go Bills. See you next Sunday.
Wow.